Hello, welcome back. I'm Mr. Eicher. This is part 3 of a 3-part series on section 1.1. So if you have your notes from the previous 2 lessons, please take those out so you can follow along, take some notes. Be active and engaged taking notes. In this lesson, we'll look at 2 questions, both dealing with formulas. Formulas are incredibly important in all sorts of fields, science and math, business, anything that uses a spreadsheet, Excel, you'd be using formulas. So it's really important that you get the idea of what a formula is. A formula is a mathematical equation that expresses the relationship between certain quantities. So we'll start with a review question of sorts from your days in Math 1 or Math 2 talking about geometry. Find the surface area of a cylinder. Now, if there's a formula like this that we throw out at you and you're not sure, you could always Google, dear Google, what's the surface area of a cylinder, and it will spit out the answer for you. I do want to draw a little cylinder for you just to review, because I'm a math teacher and I like this kind of thing. So cylinder, right, kind of looks like this. There's the cylinder. We're told the radius of the base, so that would be like this is the radius, which is 6. And then we're also told the height of the cylinder, which is 10 inches. So this height is 10 inches. All right, so there's a cylinder. We'd like to know the surface area. The surface area would be like the paintable area. If you had this cylinder and you painted the top, you painted the bottom, and you painted the part that wraps around, that would be the surface area. So you may remember in a previous math course drawing the net of a 3-dimensional object. For a cylinder, you have that circle that's on the top. So kind of shift it so you can see if you're looking down at the top. So this part right here, this is the 6-inch radius. Now, if you cut a line, if you cut this cylinder right down like this, and you unraveled it, you would get a rectangle. So you would get a rectangle that might look like this, like that. And the height of that rectangle, this side right here, is that 10 inches. Question for you would be, what's the length of this side right here? What's the length of that side of the rectangle? It is related to the circle, right? Because the top of the circle was like this, and then when you cut that part that wrapped around the circle, that gave you that rectangular side. So this length right here would be the circumference. Remember that word? The perimeter, the circumference of the circle. So circumference of the circle, one formula is 2 pi r. And we know what r is. R is 6. So that would be equal to 2 pi times 6, which is 12 pi. And then also, I don't want to forget, the cylinder has a base, and that base also has a radius of 6 inches. So I wanted to just have you see that again, where the formula is going to come from for this cylinder. So the formula that you could look up, like I said earlier, you just look up the formula for the surface area of a cylinder. The surface area, so we'll call that SA, the surface area of a cylinder is 2 circles, the top circle, the bottom circle. The area of a circle is pi r squared, and you have a top one and a bottom one. So you have 2 of those. And then you have this area in here, this rectangle. And the area of a rectangle would be the base times the height. The height is the height, and then the base is the circumference. So we would have the circumference times the height. And we can simplify this down a little bit. Since we have pi r squared plus pi r squared, that would be 2 pi r squareds plus 2 pi rh. So this is actually the formula for the surface area of a cylinder. So to answer the question, if the radius is 6, we would say the surface area is 2 pi times 6 squared plus 2 pi times 6 times the height, which is 10. So this would give us 36 times 2. We'll leave it in terms of pi. So we'll do 6 squared is 36 times 2. I think that's 72 pi plus 120 pi. So this gives us 192 pi, and it's an area, so our units would be square inches. And on Schoology, sometimes we'll provide, often, we provide the units for you, so you would just have to type in 192 pi. And a lot of times on Schoology, we would ask you to type it like that, 192 pi, instead of having you try to figure out where the pi symbol is. So that's pretty common. So just make sure you're following directions, how we're asking you to do that, to answer the question. But the answer is this right here, 192 pi. You could multiply that out. Again, on Schoology, we'd ask you specifically how we want you to write the answer, but that would be 192 pi. And then one last example of a formula in the banking or business sector. We have the formula I equals PRT is used to calculate simple interest, the amount of money made in a bank account. The variable P represents the original amount deposited. We use P as in the principal, not the principal like Mr. Moen, but the principal as in the original amount deposited is called the principal. And that's in dollars. R represents the annual interest rate as a decimal. That's really important, so I'm going to highlight it as a decimal. And T represents the time in years. So the question is, find the simple interest rate I, given each of the following values, show your setup. So our formula we're using is I equals P R, whoa, that's not an R, P R T. So the interest that we would gain if we had $1,800, that's our principal, that's how much you initially start in the account. Our interest rate needs to be a decimal, so it's really important right here. We're going to say that's probably a bad place to put it. We're going to say that our interest rate as a decimal would be 0.06. A lot of students want to call that 0.6, but 0.6 would be 60% interest. So 0.06 is what we need. So we would have that right here, 0.06. And then the time in years is 4 years. And then we would use our calculator to calculate that. So the answer I got was 432, which would represent $432. So that means, let's say you're a freshman in high school. A lot of you aren't, but let's just imagine the good old days of freshman year. If you're a freshman in high school, and you on day one you deposited $1,800, and you were getting 6% interest, which is a lot nowadays. Over 4 years, by the end of your senior year, you would have made $432. So you're just sitting around letting the interest flow in, $432. That doesn't mean that's all you have, right? Because you still have your original principal. You still have the $1,800 that you deposited, but you gained $432 in interest. This last question, again, it's circled. So that indicates you're going to be answering this question on Try This 1.1. Thanks for watching this video. Please message me or your teacher if you have any questions about this lesson.